Today we're looking at front kicks, trying to determine what's the best way to do it. Well, it all depends on your situation. Are you a Spartan warrior? The Karate Kid? Or a cowboy?
No rules. What?
Now basically your front kick is divided into two different types. You have the traditional front kick, which is what we see in a lot of karate forms and taekwondo forms, where you're lifting that knee and striking it up and out. The other one is what's known as a thrust front kick or a push front kick. Now, as we look at either type of front kick, we're not gonna worry so much about the footwork. We can do it with our front leg, our back leg, we can do our skip step, our number 3. We'll do a whole nother video on the setup and the differences between those different footwork patterns to get you into this kick. For now, we're just gonna focus mainly on what our base foot is doing, our hips, our knee, and then ultimately our foot on the end. So as we build the front kick, let's start with the foot on the ground, okay? The foot on the floor is gonna be like your anchor. We're gonna be pressing down, sticking it into the mat. We're not trying to come up onto our tippy toes. We want it to be nice and flat and strong. When we do our kick, our toes are gonna be turned slightly out. This is gonna allow me to move my hips a little bit better into the kick, which is the next step. So as I go for this kick and I lift my knee, when we do the traditional kick, again, we're thinking of this like a whip. So as I bring my knee up, I'm letting my hips extend forward as I lift that knee. So it goes hips pressing forward, knee pressing forward, foot going out, and that foot becomes the end of the whip. So from here, I'm coming up and boom, everything is pressing up and out, kind of like a 45-degree angle. Now, while we see this a lot in our forms, we don't see this a lot in sparring because there's ultimately only two main targets for this one, and that's gonna be the groin and the chin. So while we may train to hit those targets a little bit, we're not gonna see it live in a lot of sparring where we're being very amicable with our teammates and just trying to grow a little bit. Now the second type of front kick is what we call a thrust front kick or a push kick, or like we said in Muay Thai, they call it a teep, which means spear. Now that's a great name to think of it, like a spear. That's exactly what this is, and the difference happens in the hip. So when I did that first kick, my leg came up and my hip was already extending into that kick like a whip, right? I'm pressing it up. When I chamber for this one, what happens is I'm gonna keep my hip compressed in. So I'm gonna keep my hip back and my shoulders up here tight and compressed as that knee comes up. And then from here, I'll push everything out at once, boom, into a straight line. Striking surface will be either the ball of your foot, which gives you a little bit more reach, and it can be very effective as that spear. Or you can use the heel of your foot. The difference is that when you use your heel, you have to have a little bit more flexibility and you do give up range, even though that heel has a little less give to it when we strike that target. Now that thrust front kick has a lot more targets that are useful for it, okay? Really anywhere on that center line is gonna be great to push and drive the person back, but we also can target things like hips, shoulders to prevent momentum and mess up stability of our opponent. In my mind, the front kick is one of the most underutilized techniques in combat sports and in sparring, especially for how effective it can be. So I'm curious to hear what you think. Let me know how you use a front kick. And if you agree with me, it might be one of the most effective ones out there.